Well, hi folks. When I last checked in, I was on week 2 of doing the exterior painting on my Wingnut Wings Rumpler C6, C4 build. I had chosen this livery here, reminding you all because it's been a while. And I liked the beetle, the scarab beetle logo or painting on the side of the aircraft. I liked the white tail and the later version crosses, straight crosses. But I realized that this one was probably going to be stretching my painting abilities a bit because it's got the swirling or contrasting camouflage patterns on the wings, upper, lower wings, all of the fuselage. My initial thought I was going to do was this one because the majority of this livery is in the lozenge pattern, camo pattern, and Wingnut Wings very helpfully provides very good decals to do that. So I really wouldn't have been dealing with anywhere near as much masking, contrasting masking. There's a little bit of light blue on the bottom and a little bit of green in the front and the tail, but most of it's camo. But this one takes a lot of work. Anyway, I thought, okay, I can do this. And I thought probably maybe 3 or 4 sessions, 3 or 4 days, painting, masking sessions. That turned out to be more than 2 weeks, and that was 2 weeks ago. So 4 weeks, although I will admit there were more than a few days that I didn't come into the hobby room and do anything other than look at where I was and curse fates such as a air compressor on for my airbrush that's pretty much locked at 20 psi, which makes painting, airbrushing with a lower pressure, well, impossible with that compressor. That's a handicap. I've got 2 wonderful airbrushes. They're both, well, I've got several, but the 2 I use are the Harder and Steenback Evolution models. This one's a little fancier exterior, but it's essentially the same. This has got either a 0.15 or a 0.2 millimeter needle. This one's got a 0.4. So I've got the right equipment, barring a compressor that's stuck at 20 psi. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, all of which were correctable. The first mistake, which was my mistake of choosing a paint I didn't like and was a little bit twitchy, was that AK third generation paint, specifically a set that was selected the colors for German World War I aircraft. But I found it to be very unpredictable in coverage, even though I was following a specified formula. And finally stripped that all off and went to Tamiya paints, as I call them, the alcohol acrylics. Much, much better. But I had to deal with the issues of shading ribs, and the ribs, run front to back along the wings, and sometimes cross between a purple and a green pattern. So that was a bit involved. Lots of masking tape was used, both the thin 1 millimeter stuff and the very fat 18 millimeter. I don't know how many times I masked those wings to get it right. The good news is I have decided that I am satisfied with how the surfaces of the upper wings, lower wings look. I'm going to call it a day on those. And here's one of the top wings. It's a contrasting light green and mauve. And the mauve was a mixture of paint. And then you can see the ribs are highlighted through. Not quite the same shade. It may look that way. But of course, in the green, it's a very pale whitish, grayish light green. And in the mauve section, it's a very pale whitish mauve stripe. The undersides were much easier. Those are basically, and those actually are still the AK paint. the AK sky blue or light German light blue, whatever. Those were done on day one, but this due to ineptitude with masking with blue tape, blue tack, then going back to Tamiya tape, finally getting it done. So there's one of the sample wings. Yeah, the other one, just for reference point. There's the other one. I'm happy with it. The blue was fine. Okay. On the lower wings, it's the same process, but here you have contrasting dark green or dark green swaths with the mauve. And again, that required a lot of masking. Would have been less if I wasn't so dyslexic in applying masking tape, putting things in exactly the wrong places. And it takes me a while to get it right. But I got that done. So the wings are done. And that is, I'm pleased to say, is behind me now. Now, with respect to the fuselage, you can see it's all taped up again for the umpteenth time. And I'm happy to say that underneath all of that tape, as provided I don't get any leakage, the painting is done. And it's contrasting mauve and dark green. Okay? However, had some problems on the top. You can see it's scraped off there because seam filling across the top has been tricky. Well, actually, it wasn't tricky at all. I used sprue goo. But in terms of the construction of the fuselage, it's very fragile there. And yes, a couple times as I was gripping this thing to paint, it cracked. So sprue goo is not in order. I have sanded it down yet again. I'm going to look at it with a microscope or actually with magnifiers to make sure I get it all smooth. But I am waiting for black or colored flexible CA glue to apply in there, buff it down, and then I'll do the final repainting of the contrasting dark green and green, and the fuselage will be ready. You may wonder, why so much masking just to handle a fix that isn't anywhere close? I mean, Mark, what the hell are you doing masking up the front of the aircraft? Just trust me, discretion is the better part of valor, or precaution is the better part of, I should never assume that I'm not going to point the airbrush in the wrong direction, or that overspray or underspray is going to get somewhere that I never thought it would. I've learned from experience that I've got to kill a lot of masking tape, way more than anybody who's much more adept with a airbrush than me would ever have to. The flexible CA glue will be arriving either this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon. I've got a couple of things coming in, and I'm not sure which one's which. But at that point, I should be able to call that done. The fin horizontal stabilizer, they're all done. So basically, we'll be attaching these main components and then putting in a lot of the sub-assemblies back into the aircraft or onto the aircraft, and then going in for further detail work and attaching the top wing and rigging. But yeah, all of this would have been avoided had I chosen the lozenge camo livery, but I didn't. And right now, I'm not regretting that I didn't, because I'm happy. I'm a little annoyed with myself. All of the extra effort to get the camo painted. Will I use that knowledge in the future? Well, I know what has to be done. I know how it has to be done. I know that even having that knowledge, it doesn't cure my ongoing dyslexia about sometimes taping up the very area that I need to leave exposed. I don't know why I do that, but I do that. Usually I don't end up applying paint before I've discovered my mistake, but it still means stripping it off, doing it over again, getting everything lined up. maybe I should stick with British airplanes that are in PC-10 or PC-12, basically a brownish green or a brownish brown, something a lot duller, but a whole lot easier to paint. And yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus, but Santa Claus I don't think is bringing me an air compressor, which I really do need so that I can tone down or lower the pressure on the airbrush, which would enable me to get in a whole lot closer, especially with the small needle. Yeah, the joys of model building. So that's where things stand. A very long, tortured explanation of my slow progress, but I am working on it. Thanks for the folks who have given me encouragement and advice along the way. I'm just feel so fortunate to have some folks out there, especially some of the ones who are just magnificent. They sort of focus on the same era I like, the Great War aircraft, and they're such good modelers, and they put up with my foibles, probably a bit exasperated, but they're friendly, helpful, and I'm in good spirits as the holidays approach, provided that flexible CA glue arrives this weekend. I should have the exterior, the big stuff done. The fuselage will be done. The only thing that won't be finished will be some of the struts and the landing gear in terms of exterior pieces. A lot of still detail work to do, but that'll go on hold a bit for the Christmas New Year holidays, and then back to it come January. Wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year for those of you who celebrate Christmas. There are some other holidays out there, Hanukkah and others. Anyway, happy holidays, happy year end for those on the Western calendar. Chinese calendar will be a month later. Take care, everybody, and thanks for watching.